Welcome to the past, where you'll get information related to sports, video games, technology, music, and our all-time favorite ass of the week. What's going on, y'all? What's good, man? Episode 213 of The Past is here. I'm your host, BT. Hope everyone's had a productive, excellent, and positive week. Not gonna lie, there's a lot to get into. I'm not gonna really hit y'all with a whole lot of intro fluff and BS. We just gonna hit these topics. I always like to make sure I make you all aware. If you are having any issues or concerns that you may feel like you're in a crisis or in a tough situation, people you may be experiencing distress, just to prevent any issues or personal things going on. Or if you know someone who is hitting a point where they're really in like a true bind, I'm going to provide this phone number. It is 1-800-273-TALK or 1-800-273-8255. I do want to make everyone aware, because I didn't bring this up in any other episodes, which proves that I'm slipping on my game. But September is National Suicide Prevention Month. If you can be that one to make that impact on someone else, by all means do so. And that's just by letting others know, hey, this person possibly could use, or it would be helpful if they were given or provided help. So I want to get that out there first and foremost before we go into our topics this week. I'm sticking to the football trend. Last week we did our weekly picks. Wasn't the worst, but wasn't the best. I mean, I got a better record. I'm starting off a little better this year than I did last year. I had most of my matches pretty well taken care of. Carolina was Carolina, and they proved that they didn't want to win. So that was one of my losses. Houston lost, Philly lost, Pittsburgh lost, which was somewhat of a shocker. And the Patriots lost, which I think was the biggest shocker from last week. You look at the matchup, they were playing Jacksonville. Jacksonville kind of was in their head to say it without saying it. So it ended up being the way it did. But a lot of the other games did go as expected. The Rams blew out the Cardinals. Wow. Like, that was just a blindsided play. Dallas did beat the Giants in the late night game. Chicago's proving that the Khalil Mack move was a good move for them. Miami got their win. If you do or do not remember, the Browns continuing their losing trend did lose last week, but going into this upcoming week 3, since they played yesterday, they did win their first game of the season, which generated the infamous discussion of Baker Mayfield, because now it comes down to, should we make him the starter? I'm going to be honest, it's week 3. We're in week 3 now, so giving him that nod of being a starter is going to be a tall order. Whether Hugh Jackson realizes it or not, he could be benefiting his job, but he could also be putting his position as a coach in jeopardy. So just keep that in mind as the season progresses. So overall, like I stated, I went 9-5-1 due to Green Bay and Minnesota tying. So I couldn't really get a win or a loss, so I had to put a tie for that. And that kind of generated some conversation as far as kickers. I believe Minnesota got the former kicker with the Cowboys on their roster, so that will help them hopefully get over that hump of sorts. So this week's games, you will hear me doing a little bit of typing, so I'm just going to type them out so that way I'm not forgetting, because going back and editing and modifying is more of a process in a sense, but it's better to just go ahead and put them down since we're right here looking at each of the matchups. And this site, Fox Sports, has a more consistent flow to how you can set these up as far as looking at the matchups and who's playing and records and things of that sort. Because a lot of games, I'm not gonna lie, I'm picking just based on who I think will win and not really seeing, all right, what's the team's records? How do they look? Could that play into what the result could be? So first matchup, New Orleans at Atlanta. And it's bad because normally I'm always picking against Atlanta anyway, but they're both tied 1-1, so I'm gonna go New Orleans on purpose. Normally, when I had Dimitri on the show, we always would pick. He was a big Atlanta guy, so we always knew what it was. Denver plays Baltimore. Denver's 2-0. Starting off pretty solid. I think Denver's going to shock people and go 3-0 starting out. We'll see. Going into Cincinnati and Carolina. Carolina's 1-1. They won their first game, had a tough loss against Atlanta, but, hey, it happens. Cincinnati's 2-0. I'm going to go ahead and I'm still going to pick Carolina for this one because it's in Carolina. That's my biggest hold on that one. But, of course, if it changes, then it is what it is. Giants against Texans. Both teams 0-2. Saquon Barkley shows signs and glimmers of promise, as you would say, in the Giants household. Houston has been Houston, I guess. They're kind of waiting because a lot of times teams have to go through that little rough patch early on. And these are two teams that are known to do that. And then when it comes near playoff seeding, they can get those key wins or go on a key run that could make or break their season. So I will pick the Giants for that one. The Tennessee Titans go against Jacksonville. Titans 1-1, Jacksonville 2-0. Jacksonville looks pretty good. Blake Bortles is showing that he deserves, he proved that he is a force to be reckoned with. So I'll pick Jacksonville for that game. San Fran at Kansas City. Kansas City's 2-0. San Fran 1-1. San Fran looked good on their early on meeting. Most recently, not the best. Oh, I'm sorry. Their first game wasn't the best. Their most recent game, they did win. I will go ahead and pick Kansas City for that game. And me learning how to type will be a problem in this whole podcast. Oklahoma. The Raiders, let's just do that instead. Raiders play Dolphins. Dolphins 2-0. Raiders 0-2. And Mr. Gruden not off to a great start so far. I'm going to just be a buck about it. I'm going Dolphins. Buffalo against Minnesota, who, as I mentioned earlier, is one of our 1-1 teams that are tied. Gonna pick. This is a tough one. Minnesota's 1-0-1. Buffalo's 0-2. I'll pick Minnesota. If they surprise me, then if the Bills surprise me, I'll pick them next week. You heard it here first. The Colts and Eagles. Wentz will be playing his first game of the season. Could be a good thing, could be a risky idea, but I think Wentz will come in and show that he is the guy, and he's the one expected to take them to the promised land since he was the reason they got to the Super Bowl and won last year. So I'm picking Philly for that game. Green Bay at Washington. Surprise pick for me, not a surprise pick for y'all. Redskins. Not really giving them no further details. Not just because it's in FedEx Field. Aaron Rodgers is playing like Aaron Rodgers, but this is the contract. This is the we got the bag contract. Yeah, so keep that in mind. Chargers at Rams. Always a battle of the LAs. Who's the better LA? Gonna go the Chargers. We still have Phillip Rivers, who's been quiet. Early on in the season, we really don't hear from him, but then it's always that November, December run that we're confused by. Chicago 1-1 and Arizona 0-2. Chicago plays Arizona in one of the 4 late night or evening matchups. Arizona, like I said, hasn't really been looking good. Chicago's been on a run, so they on a run in a sense as far as they won their last game. So I'm picking Chicago for that game. Dallas and Seattle would have been considered as the game of the week, but Seattle's 0-2. Don't be mad. Don't be surprised. I'm going Cowboys. Patriots at Detroit. At this point of the year, I was expecting New England to be 2-0 with no problem, but obviously they lost to Jacksonville. Detroit's Detroit. Gonna pick the Patriots. And finally, our number one game, not our number one game, our Monday night game, Pittsburgh at Tampa Bay. I can't believe I'm saying this, especially with them being in our division, but I have to pick based on who I feel has the better chance, especially with the location, along with the factors of Antonio Brown not being in his best suit of wanting to play, as well as Le'Veon Bell still in his holdout, picking Tampa Bay. So those are my picks. They will be the link for the picks will be in the podcast show notes if you want to check that out. So that's what I have for that. All right. So I wanted to go ahead and get this story because it hit and I wanted to not just brush it off like, all right, it occurred and let's not talk about it since we are here. And that is that Josh Gordon, and it's ironic that this all happened like in a matter of a couple days. ESPN News Services presented this story that Josh Gordon was let go from the Cleveland Browns. The team had announced on Saturday night that it was looking to release their former Pro Bowl wideout back on Monday. There were league sources that told Adam Schefter on Saturday that they believed Cleveland would trade Gordon before Monday, stating that teams were already reaching out to the Browns. The Browns didn't really give any details behind the decision to part ways. Of course, stories leaked later on that it was based on work ethic as well as his effort in camp and train, off week training. While Gordon has no saying where he's traded, sources told Schefter that Gordon is hopeful that it's to a place that can provide the support and understanding he needs. There were at least 8 to 10 teams that had reached out regarding picking him up. So that I'm not gonna really give this story a huge hit, only because we have the story that followed right probably a few days afterward. And Nick Shook, who is one of the writers for NFL.com, he does Around the NFL, did release the story that Josh Gordon did indeed find a new home. The Cleveland Browns announced that they would be trading Josh Gordon to the Patriots, along with a 2019 conditional 2019 7th round draft pick for a 2009 5th round draft pick. The Patriots did cut Browns 1st round pick Corey Coleman. The Browns signed free agent wide receiver Rod Streeter. Browns made it public over the weekend. They were planning to release him after the sides had reached a point. So that that's the story from that end. I'm gonna talk more on the surface of what happened. Josh Gordon was gonna make the Browns had to make a decision, and it was a from the hip decision. It wasn't the best of decisions, but it worked for the cause. That ended up being that let's go ahead and cut ties. Let's do what we need to do. We'll be okay and go from there. So the Browns were put in a position of they were trying to see how it would go. His first game, week 1, he played fine. Everything looked okay. Week 2, there wasn't really much of an appearance. And then the announcement came and it was, all right, we're sending him off. Or we're letting him go. But it was also the option on the table of they really didn't want to per se let him go without the Browns getting something out of the deal. So there was the option of, obviously, if anyone wants to pick him up, bring him on your team, we'll bring him on the team and we'll give it a shot. The Patriots stepped in. The Patriots are known to do this. Now, I want to make sure, because I might be jumping the gun a little bit. I'm not sure if T.O. was one of those individuals, but I know this was Chad Ochocinco's era, Randy Moss. There were other wideouts who have played under the Patriots in that time period of, let's give this a chance to see what we can do as far as getting him onto our lineup. And I don't know. I feel like they made, as with any team, they made a decision that was the best business decision. And it may not have looked like a great decision, but in hindsight, they did what they had to do. And yeah, I kind of figured I was sticking to that. He did not play for New England. But yeah, you had Chad Johnson and you had Moss. Moss wasn't a bad choice at the time. I think Moss was coming, if I remember correctly, Moss was coming off of playing for Oakland. And then he was looked at as going to New England to kind of get a new start. Because I think he was in Oakland for a year and then went to New England. But nonetheless, referring to Josh Gordon, I feel like Josh Gordon, this is kind of like this is the last straw. This is the last option. Like, there hasn't been any stories or news circulating regarding him with substance abuse, which is a great thing. But on the opposite end and on the obvious side, you want to make sure that if you're making a decision and or an investment like this, that it's for the right reason. And so the Patriots took that risk. it can help them or it can harm them. We really don't know. This could be the one piece needed to get Brady the last championship before he sails off into the sunset. Who knows? So that's what we have right now with Josh Gordon. If, as the season plays along, we'll see games and we'll see how the Brady-Gordon connection comes into play. I mean, he has Gronkowski. You have other wideouts as well. So that's just adding more weapons to what Brady already has. And I mean, like I said, they're 1-1, so it's not like they're in a worse place right now. But as I always say with the Patriots, their division is what makes or breaks where or how they're bound to go. So that's just something to look at and think about through this whole process. Now we're gonna get into what I would have made ass of the week, but it wasn't really an ass of the week situation because initially it didn't seem serious, but as the week progressed, it started to become a real thing. And that is that one of the cornerbacks for the cornerbacks for the Buffalo Bills starting cornerback Vontae Davis strangely abruptly retired at halftime of a game. So they were playing their game last week, and the initial story, was presented as they played the first half of the game. He left, went off the field, and he didn't come back. He released a statement, which I'm hoping is on this page. This isn't how I pictured retiring from the NFL. But in my 10th NFL season, I've been doing what my body has been programmed to do. Get ready to play on game day. I've endured multiple surgeries and played through many different injuries throughout my career. And over the last few weeks, this was the last physical challenge. But today on the field, reality hit me fast and hard. I shouldn't be out there anymore. I meant no disrespect to my teammates and coaches, but I hold myself to a standard. Mentally, I always expect myself to play at a high level, but physically, I know today that is impossible. And I had an honest moment with myself. While I was on the field, I just didn't feel right. And I told the coaches, I'm not feeling like myself. I also wondered, do I keep sacrificing? And truthfully, I do not, because the season is long and it's more important for me and my family to walk away healthy than to willfully embrace the warrior mentality and limp away too late. This was an overwhelming decision, but I'm at peace with myself and my family. I choose to be grateful to God for allowing me to play the game that I have loved as a boy until I turned 30 years old. I choose to be grateful to God for being part of the NFL and making lifelong friends over the last decade. There were roadblocks and pitfalls along the way, but I'm grateful to God for all of it because He doesn't promise any of us an easy journey. I'm going to say this. So I read that because there's really not much of because they played the Chargers. The final score was 31-20. He retired at halftime. He just felt like he shouldn't have been out there anymore. I don't have an issue with him. And before I continue, Mike Rodak was the writer of this story as well. Vontae Davis made a business decision, but in a very strong business setting at an unexpected time. Call it what it is. I don't have an issue with the decision of retirement. If you want to retire mid-season after a game, I could see that. But to play a half and then not finish the game, if you're mentally at that point, at least come out on the field. Tell the coach, hey, don't put me in the game. I'm just going to sit. I'm chilling. I'm good. And then at the end of the game, do a press conference and walk away. I get that it would stand out more if he had did it that way. But this way of it standing out made it even more, to me, in my personal opinion, it made it more suspect. Just telling my look of my views of it. I wish him the best. Obviously, I know it was just random, but it was unexpected, but it was more so him doing what he had to do for himself. And this is me being an advocate and just saying it to tell it like it is. I'm always going to tell anyone self-care is important. You should always make sure you're good and you're in the right place of whatever it is you are or aren't trying to do. But there's also like some logic and some like, let's step back and think about this for a second scenario that has to come into play. I don't feel like that happened until just a random spur of the moment and he just pulled himself out of the game. Lorenzo Alexander stated it, did an interview after the game where he said, never have seen it ever. Pop Warner High School, college pros, never heard of it. Never seen it, and it's just completely disrespectful to his teammates. He didn't say nothing to nobody. I found out going into the second half of the game. They said he's not coming out. He's retired. That's it. And then he released a statement later on. Now they did bring up Davis, who's 30, was a healthy scratch for the Bills' regular season opener in favor of Phillip Gaines, who started the Bills' 47-3 loss to the Baltimore Ravens. Gaines played nickel cornerback for the Bills on Sunday after an injury to rookie Teron Johnson in the season opener. Gaines dislocated his elbow in Sunday's game, a source told ESPN, but there is hope that there will be treatment. He will be able to play next Sunday in Minnesota. The Bills signed Davis to a 1-year deal in February that included a $2.25 million base salary and a $1.5 million signing bonus. Of his base salary, $2 million was guaranteed. He was also due roster bonuses of $15,000 a game on a 53-man roster and $46,000 per game on a 46-man game day roster. I'm going to say this and I'm going to leave it alone. You got to do what you got to do for yourself as far as a business, but some business moves have to be really thought out in some manner. And this one just had it thought out. The think out process was not the strongest. But again, a person is going to do what they feel fit. Like just, going back to, we talked about it a couple months ago with the guy who was expected to go to Syracuse to play basketball and decided he's going to give up his scholarship and go into the G League to possibly get a spot in the NBA. He's not guaranteed a spot in the NBA because there's also the factor of he's in the G League, but he technically has not been drafted by a team. If anything, he could be picked up through free agency, or he could still go into the draft the upcoming year because he has to be a year removed from high school. So there's that whole piece, but that's spinning away from the football discussion we're having now. I wish him the best. Like I said, I hope he is making a decision. He, as he mentioned in his press release, it was based on him, his family, and his future. And as strange as that may seem, I know I'm not speaking English, I can accept that. So, props to him. Hopefully, wish him the best. Going into basketball, the NBA Twitter and media reports announced that Jimmy Butler had requested a trade from the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, as of this article and as of what I have read or just information that I received, it sounds like the trade has been pulled off of the table. That was actually addressed as of today. Minnesota has shut down teams trying to trade for Jimmy Butler. Now, that was a couple minutes ago. But this article that was written on yesterday was having him he wanted to leave Minnesota. The teams that were high on the radar were the Nets, the Clippers, and the Knicks. So we'll go ahead and push to the current and we'll kind of see what we're going to call it for what it is now. Because I say this on my show and I always like to make sure I bring this to people's attention. I personally don't like doing rumors or reports that may say someone's going somewhere, but they don't actually get traded. Going back to last year with Kyrie, until Kyrie was officially traded, that was when I brought that story to attention. This story, the demand of leaving Minnesota occurred. The sidebar, which I'm going to get into about this, is where I'm kind of blown away, is Andrew Wiggins wasn't feeling Butler leaving, but also Steven Jackson chimed in and gave his thoughts on Butler making that decision. And it was also a big rift because Andrew Wiggins' brother, I think, put congratulations or about time or something, and he put it was a message. Twitter encrypts messages if the wrong person misinterprets what's being read, if that makes sense. Like yesterday, I posted a tweet, or made a social post in general about me having a conversation with someone, and the discussion was addressed as to why are most sports majority black, or up to, he said 75% black. I was like, I can't really give an answer that's the exact amount, but I said, why is it more black athletes in sports? And my answer that I gave, because it was how I observed it, at least from a basketball perspective, revenue. An athlete, and this is, if you look at it, Tom Brady's endorsements and promos are all TV12, whatever other, sponsorships he has, but there aren't any major, huge global sponsorships that he's out there pushing. You look at someone such as LeBron, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. Anytime you name those guys, you're thinking of Jordan, Nike, Adidas, Gatorade, whatever they're part of. One of the pizza companies, I can't think of the name of it. LeBron is part of that. But I say all of that just to say where and how players market themselves is what benefits the team or what benefits the sport. Jimmy Butler right now, whether people want to admit it or want to acknowledge it, Jimmy Butler is in a place where he's looking to be the man. He could have somewhat been considered as the man, but he was more of a veteran. He was slightly looked at as a veteran in Minnesota because of it being such a young team, along with, you already had Karl Anthony Towns as the guy. That was Karl Anthony's team. Call it what you want. To tie into why I brought up the whole Twitter reference, when Wiggins' brother responded, or Wiggins' brother made that tweet, and it was encrypted and ran with and misinterpreted, it caused a swirl, because here it is, Andrew Wiggins looking at it as, well, why would you want him to leave? That's my teammate, blah, 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 whatever. And Steven Jackson came in and said, well, that's cool, but if he's going to make a decision, if he's leaving Minnesota, you can't fault him, or you can't blame him for making that type of a decision. At the end of the day, it's about what's going to benefit you for your future and your career. I posted this in my sports group. I'm sticking to it now. I feel as though Jimmy Butler knows something is coming. It's a matter of what we don't know on the outside, which I'm okay with. I am a huge believer of, I don't need to know bit by bit what's going on in sports. And here's why I make that reference. If there's a possibility that a coach could be fired, I don't need to see a tweet that says, yo, he about to get his bags packed. All it need to be is, once he's fired, break the story, let social media go through its wave, and go from there. So the teams that were, like I said, the big names on the list were the Nets, Clippers, and Knicks. The Clippers were the highest. The conversation then came up about the Lakers. He really didn't want to go to the Lakers because of LeBron being there, because then that meant he wasn't going to be the man. And sometimes players go through that, where it's like, if I'm going to a team and I'm not expected to be the guy, then I don't want to go. And as I mentioned earlier, and as I'm sticking to saying it now, as an athlete, you have that right or that choice to feel that way. All right, so that's all we have on sports right now. I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all offhand, because this is going to surprise people. It might surprise me too. I don't have an ass of the week this week. I don't have a pass of the week this week. Stories have kind of come and gone. We'll get into a story that I found as ass of the week, and I'll throw it in there, and we'll chop it up about that. But really hasn't been much of a big ass of the week based week, I guess. There were some passes that I may talk about. We'll get into that in a bit. But first story was written by John Fingus with Engadget. Fortnite is on the Switch, and you won't require or you won't need an online subscription to play Fortnite. Nintendo did launch its Switch online service. People were wondering, would they have to pay to play every game online, especially if it's free to play, such as, for instance, Fortnite? The company has posted a Switch online frequently asked question that mentions some games, including Fortnite, won't require a subscription plan when it goes live. And it's been live as of Tuesday on the 18th. There's no mention of the criteria that will decide exceptions to the rule, although it wouldn't be surprising if other free-to-play games like Warframe make the cut. The policy parallels Sony's approach to PlayStation Plus, which also exempts free-to-play games and would give Nintendo an edge over Microsoft's strict Xbox Live Gold requirement for all online titles. Nintendo likely doesn't want to alienate millions of players by requiring a subscription for the hottest free-to-play game in recent memory, and it's not exactly losing a lot of revenue if those gamers never pay Switch Online's $20 per year fee. Which, by the way, I will say, out of all of the online fee options or online gaming options, that deal you can't beat to be able to play online, and you paying only $20 for a whole year. So I'm all for that. Now I'm gonna share this other Fortnite story because I found this article that caught my timeline, and then I also realized that it's a real thing, and I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't put it past anyone to experience or encounter this type of a situation, but just the fact that it happened blew my mind. So William Hughes, who was with the AV News or AV Club, shared this story on the Newswire that Fortnite has now been cited in more than 200 divorce proceedings. Let that sink in for a second. Fortnite's been out for a while. People play Fortnite, and part of your proceedings in your divorce is consisting of a video game. Every few years, an obsession comes along in the gaming world that sweeps everything else off the board. Coverage of games like World of Warcraft and Minecraft frequently takes on the tone of some kind of epidemic thriller, as reports spread of hooked kids, infuriated parents, and shattered relationships. Now, Fortnite, the massively popular free-to-play online shooter that boils the current battle royale game craze down into its most effective and addictive form, is the latest vector of infection, and it's reached a new milestone in its video game as pox upon society. Because while the game itself has graduated in the last year from plucky, extremely ubiquitous knockoff to goddamn omnipresent elder statesman of the genre, Epic Games' massively popular title has just achieved the real brass ring in the supposedly life-destroying video game addiction stakes. Specifically, said honor comes in the form of a report stating that more than 200 divorce proceedings have cited the game in their complaints. And that's just in the UK and only in 2018. Admittedly, this is per a press release from the online divorce service Divorce Online, who presumably have a vested interest in making divorce seem sexy and cool in a way that only you walked in front of the screen and a 10-year-old in Wyoming shot me dead, so now I'm taking the house truly can. Still, even with a healthy dose of salt being taken, it's an impressive number, supposedly representing something like 5% of all British divorces in the last year. Congratulations are in order to Epic Games and to every couple who worked hard to make this achievement possible. It's nice petty close to that article. So look, I'm going to talk about the games that I know, and then I'm going to talk about Fortnite, NBA 2K, Madden, FIFA, Gears of War, Call of Duty. Let's see, Street Fighter, Tekken. We'll go back on Mortal Kombat. So I'm at 8 games so far. I didn't mention Fortnite. Call of Duty, the newest one, is going to have a battle royale. If there's anything that people, men or women, will know or realize, is that gaming is becoming is starting to gain a slight takeover. If you missed it or if you're under a rock, it's cool. But it's happening. We're here. Gamers are in the mix. Gaming is a part of the mix. Gaming should not end relationships if it's something as small as someone walking by the TV. I have friends. We all game together. We all do our own techie thing or whatever. There's rules and there's reality of life. If someone is playing Tetris, I'm using Tetris as an example, but it's a poor example and I'm going to explain why. There are games that you can pause. Call of Duty cannot be paused. NBA 2K can be paused. Madden can be paused. Fortnite cannot be paused. I'm using those terms because of the ending where they make the reference about you walked by the screen and I got shot by someone in the game. Now, granted, you don't know where this person from. They said why I'm being funny, but in all reality, you're playing a game, and everything's about location. I know I'm doing speculation. I'm not sure what the extent of how this is all being played in. I'll put this factor and then I'll go to the next story. If it comes to the point where there's no gaming area, like some people are probably in marriages or married someone and didn't expect that a part of their house was going to be a gaming area. Number one. Number two, some people may not realize that if you're involved with someone who's gaming, out of a 24-hour day, even with an 8-hour job or a 10, 12-hour job, whatever, at least 6 to 8 hours can be seen invested in gaming a day. And people aren't used to that. I think what makes it more ironic when folks don't look at it as it doesn't necessarily have to only be guys gaming. Girls game too. That's a very important point to bring up in this, because a lot of times men or women look at gaming as stupid. Call it what you want, present it how you feel, but to the person that's playing, that's my way of staying out of trouble. To the person that's not playing, it's why are you playing that stupid game? I'm here. I've talked about this on the show before. I hope I did. If I didn't, I'm going to bring it up now. Fellas, be smart with the gaming process. Don't sit and play NBA 2K 100 hours a day or 100 hours a week and not give your girl any worthwhile quality time. She's going to get upset. There's no pretty way of putting it. If it's already 48 hours in the weekend and you spent at least 30 of them playing games on the weekend, that's not cool. Ladies, if you really want to get in the mix, try to learn the game. I'm not sitting here saying you have to learn the game, only because gaming is a lot more complex than Duck Hunt and Tetris and Mario and games that only require 2 or 3 buttons. Because there are more buttons you got to press and figure out now. I got that. I'm not going to take that away from the mix at all. But try. If you really want to spice it up and you really want to blow his mind, catch him off guard, cosplay. You don't have to sit there and be the sexiest chick in the world to wear a LeBron James jersey or to wear a t-shirt period and put Lakers in 23 on the front of it and make it like you LeBron defending him. Be creative. And this is something that I feel like could be a side tangent, but I'm going to say it because it needs to be said. There is nothing wrong with being creative in your relationship and or marriage. And I think people aren't there yet with that because they're so used to traditional, routine, mundane, bare minimum, basic, simple, whatever. Which can be okay sometimes, but other times balance it out. Like give the house some relaxed tension or something. True, easier said than done, but it's a way to go about doing it. And I feel like it's missed sometimes. But that's me verbally giving my frustration of how I'm looking at the situation. Hold on, I'm sorry. I want to make sure I get this story. because this was, I think I'm going to blend this in his ass of the week anyway. So, got a good one for y'all. And this story is still a shocker to me, but not really. And I'll explain why. Apple is running on fumes. Apple has hit we're running on fumes, and we've maxed what we're able to do with our design or our style. First of all, Samsung, anyone who owns Samsung or anyone that's a fan of Samsung, I'm going to say this to y'all, and I'm hoping this doesn't happen. If Samsung brings out a device and they call it the Samsung X, I'm through. I will break Samsung, I will break Apple, and I will probably get the most random phone just to be petty, to not be in the midst of how copycatish businesses are. I doubt Samsung will do that, but I'm just saying that as a hypothetical. So Shannon Lau wrote this article for The Verge, and it's stating that iPhone names are so bad, so it's hard to see where it goes from here. Because we came out with the iPhone X last year. So then what do we decide to do? Let's go with iPhone XS, iPhone XS Max, and iPhone Max. They did not think this through. It's not really that complicated. And I feel like what's bad about it is, and I'm sorry, let me make sure I get the right names. It's the iPhone XR, iPhone XS, and iPhone XS Max. If you look at the history of phones and how it all came about, you start off with the iPhone. Then you had the iPhone 3G. Then you had the iPhone 3GS. Then you had the iPhone 4. You had the 4S. You had the 5, the 5C. 5C was supposed to be where we went with colors, and it was the iPhone 5 was one of the cheapest models, but the simplest form factor, I guess is the best way to put it. You had the iPhone 5C and the 5S. You had the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. Then you had the 6S Plus, the iPhone SE, which I thought was a waste. I think that's what I'm using currently with my employment. Then you had the iPhone 7 and the 7 Plus. When you had the 7 and the 7 Plus, stick with that. Keep the same energy. 8 and 8 Plus, 9 and 9 Plus, X and X Plus. Instead, you say, I'm going to bring out the iPhone 8, the iPhone 8 Plus. We're going to change the camera up. We're going to switch the game up on the 8 and the 8 Plus. And we're going to bring out the iPhone X, where it's a full screen. Oh, cool. We get full screen, but it's still that little bit of, as everyone calls it, that little bit of a bezel that isn't even a full phone. Is an iPhone 11 coming? Who knows? I just hope they think this. I hope all of this comes together when they're like planning this out. And I'm not sure if they're gonna hear this podcast, but I just feel like I'm looking at the article, but I'm really not reading much from this because it's just one of those things of Apple's hit the burnout point, and this article confirms it. So that's my full breakdown A to Z running for that story. Nick Stat, also with The Verge, presented to us, and I guess this will be a 2-for-1. We're in our, as we all know, we're in our mini classic stage. Everyone's doing mini classics. Right now, Nintendo's been running it. You had the original Nintendo, you had the Super Nintendo, and I think that's all they've had so far. But other companies are jumping on board, and they know it's an opportunity that you don't want to miss out on. Sony has decided to is looking to launch a PlayStation Classic. It's going to be right around Christmas. It's going to be a little before Christmas. It's going to have 20 games loaded on it, and the cost of it is $100. Is that a bad price point? Actually, it's not. If you really look at how much people paid for the original PlayStation when it came out, and the games you're getting, along with the fact that if you give people enough time, they're going to hack into it and mod it anyway, you're not coming out with a bad deal. It's going to have 20 games. Some of the games they presented or mentioned would be Final Fantasy VII, Tekken 3, Ridge Racer Type 4. Crash Bandicoot better be one of those games. Sorry. I'm telling you like it is. I don't care if y'all made a bunch of Crash Bandicoot trilogies. Crash Bandicoot should be a game. Spyro should be a game. PlayStation is doing their announcements now on Twitch where they're talking about different games. And they brought up, they were showing like the Spyro trilogy. I'll talk about this now because I don't want to forget. If you have a Apple Watch Series 2 or 3, the new Watch OS is out. If you have any of your newer iPhones, such as I believe it's starting at the iPhone 7. If you have the 7, the 8, the X, or you're getting any of the pre-orders that are out, if you got the pre-order and yours already came, it's going to have iOS 12 by default. But if not, and you're already owning your iPhone X, your iPhone 8, or your iPhone 7, iOS 12 has been dropped. It's also on your new iPads, and it should be on the iPod Touch 6th generation. I always had to make sure I say 6th generation because I have the 5th generation. A little upset, but my iPod stopped at 9, I believe. But I use it for the bare minimum, so it's not a big deal. With the mini PlayStation, you'll get the PS1 controller. You'll get 2 classic PS1 controllers. You'll also be able to get the cable to connect it for HDMI, as well as the cable to plug it in and charge it. And it gives you the Sony PlayStation manual, which looks just like the manual they used to give you when you bought the original PlayStation. I'm not gonna lie, PlayStation was nostalgia for me. I felt bad when I think I sold mine. I think I gave mine back to GameStop. Wish I didn't, because that was probably, like, looking back now, I mean, yeah, money was money and you had opportunity to trade for other systems, but there were a lot of consoles. I have a system now that plays a lot of retro games, but if I had the original console to play some of the games that I had at that time, there were some games that I just adored and just loved. So that's where we are with that. A couple months ago, may have been earlier than that or even further back, we made an announcement, or I made a presentation about Sega Genesis coming with their mini. Turns out they're delaying to 2019. Good. I'm not really going to give much attention to that, only because it's the Genesis and we know how Genesis does. Sometimes Genesis is on point. Other times they miss the mark. They may be able to fully come through with this. If they can, the title is saying it as the Sega Genesis Mini or the Mega Drive, because it has the look of the original Genesis, which was, as I mentioned, it was announced back in April. And this article is from GameSpot, and it was written by, it doesn't have the person. Okay. And I'll talk about that at the end because I haven't mentioned. Oh, I'm sorry. Eddie Makuch was the person who shared this article. And I'll talk about why I'm giving this at the end because I'm all about being transparent on my podcast. Y'all know I don't care. But anywho, that's what I have for that as far as the Genesis. So if you're looking to get the Genesis Mini, that's coming soon. GoPro is joining the live stream circuit with the GoPro Hero 7 Black. If you may or may not recall, I did do an article about the GoPro screen image being shown of what the new GoPro lineup would look like. Someone took a picture of it in Best Buy, but they do have the Hero 7s. It's the Hero 7, the Hero 7 Black, and the Hero 7 Silver. The price points are $199, $299, and $399 respectively. If I'm remembering right, the Hero 7 just general is going to be like the GoPro Session. And I'm going to say this because I feel like it needs to be pointed out. GoPro, they're making new models each year, right? And that's okay. That's cool. As a business, they have that option. They have that right. You don't have to get the newest model to be able to use GoPro to its max. And I think people miss that point, especially if you're going to GoPro's website or if you're going into different businesses to buy the GoPro products, because some stores may not have them in stock. You always do research. Go on eBay, go on Amazon. You'd be surprised. Somebody may have the product available. But GoPro is going to be launching a camera that's capable of live streaming, so that way that they'll be able to get folks involved. The camera that does live stream is the Hero 7 Black, which is the more expensive. It is $399. They made the announcement of the Hero 7 White. So I did say Session, but Hero 7 White, which is $199. Hero 7 Silver is $299. They're both waterproof and they're waterproof up to 33 feet. Have improved the stability, image quality, and voice recognition. They've also outfitted their flagship adventure cameras with shareable, social focused features like easy uploading and unique video formats. The company, we talked about this on the show before with GoPro. Their stock has been in a battle. The stock went to 92.7 over the past 5 years. Currently trades are below $7 after peaking at $86.97 in October of 2014. The 3 cameras are available for online pre-order and will be available in stores internationally on September 27th, and we'll get them here in the States on September the 30th. So that's where we are with that. And this article, again, this is by Waverly Colville. All right, so let me make sure I get Spotify going for this, because I don't want to play anything publicly. I just want to talk about Spotify for a minute as far as music. First things first, today's Friday. Lil Wayne was anticipated to drop an album today, but it's not out. So there's no album that I've seen. There are a whole plethora of albums out that I haven't had a chance to even try to listen to yet, because music is just coming left and right. So I'll be trying to get some listens in today with some downtime. Let's see, because there was a lot. I did listen to, doggone it, and Anthony David has a new album. Are you serious? It came out today. Yeah, today is going to be the day. Like September 21st is the day to listen to music. If you want some new music, regardless of genre, there's plenty to listen to. David and Tamela Mann have a new single, Good Love. The Story So Far is out. The Neighborhood has an EP out. I think I talked about it already. Wale's EP is out, and I've been playing that half to death, and a lot of people have heard me play it half to death. I did listen to Gucci Mane, Bruno Mars, and Kodak Black, Wake Up in the Sky. Pretty good track. Like I said, Free Lunch was out. David Guetta's album, I was able to listen to a bit of it, and I was very impressed, very, very amused, and very amazed. I knew it was one that I'd forgotten. I'm glad I did scroll back. Black's new album dropped last week. Oh my gosh. If you are not a if you're not a fan of Black, and it's spelled 6LAK for Black, if you don't understand that, the 6 has a similarity to a B, whatever. You should be able to do 2 and 2 if you're writing 6 is right. But anywho, Black's album, his last project he did was Free Black in 2016. Go back and listen to that first. After you listen to it, go ahead and listen to East Atlanta Love Letter. That's all I'm going to tell you. I have played that album, love that album, enjoy that album, value that album. Like, there's so much album reference I can give about that album and that CD that I may just annoy people. A couple weeks ago, I finally got caught up on listening to Level Up by Ciara. Ciara has a new track out called Dose. Have not listened to it yet. There are a lot of singles. There's a lot of music. Take that time and just get your listen on. Put on some earbuds, some AirPods, some power beats, some Beats by Dre. I'm promoting all the beats because I'm trying to get sponsored by Beats, and I'll mention where I'm going with that later on as well. But yes, get your music on, get your listen on. Definitely give it a spin. Check out what's out there. You might find something you may love. Even if you're not a Apple owner, let me emphasize this. Even if you're not a Spotify user, if you're an Apple Music listener, if you're a Tidal listener, hell, if you're a SoundCloud listener, I'll even go pettier than that. If you listen to songs through YouTube and you have the Prime or the enhanced membership where you can play YouTube while your phone is off, utilize your resources and listen to some music. Like, I feel like we get through our phases of life being good, but we also get through our bad phases and frustrate ourselves and not realize like a good album or a good EP could be what we need to get our brain back on track. And it's okay. It really and truly and genuinely is okay. So I'm just sharing that, and I'm just putting that out there for everyone to keep in mind. All right. So I have a cool, I'll have my cool story first, and then I'll give Ass of the Week, because I did find this article while we were talking, and of course I pulled it up in the wrong tab, but it happens. As many of you may or may not be aware, there was a hurricane that touched down on the East Coast. Impacted North Carolina predominantly, and the nicest way to put it, a lot of people's homes were caught through the, as it put it, you have, a hurricane hits, towns will, you'll have floods rising. A lot of homes were flooded. A lot of people had to move. Some individuals I personally know were moved. Some people were safe during the hurricane. I did see some people share videos. Thankfully, they were safe in sharing videos. But nonetheless, all of that occurred. But Chris Paul, Steph Curry, and John Wall, who all grew up in North Carolina, decided to help with the Hurricane Florence reliefs. What they were doing is they're giving $25,000 to get donations started. And the League's Players Association also gave $25,000. It's been over 5 days since the landfall, and there are still remnants of Florence now out to sea. Residents in the Carolinas and Virginia are still recovering from torrential rains that left dozens dead, along with the widespread destruction and injury. They were stating that at least 37 people have died in 3 states, including 2 women who were taken to a mental health facility when the van they were riding in was engulfed by floodwaters from the Little PD River in South Carolina. Nearly 3 feet of rain fell in places, and dozens of cities had more than 10 inches of rain. North Carolina officials said more than 7,800 people remain in shelters, down from about 10,000 on Monday. And also, to add to the story, which was written through ESPN News Services, it also states, this isn't shared here, but just in general, a lot of people were without power for periods of time. Luckily, some did recover and gain power, but just having that experience was tough. So anyone that has been impacted, or that was impacted, or is still impacted by Hurricane Florence, positive energies, prayers, and good vibes to all of you, because it's not something that anyone wants to wake up and experience by a long shot. All right. So this is a funny yet weird ass of the week, but it's here. So Ron Dicker, who is with HuffPost, I almost called him Huffington Post, and it's odd because that's what they have the website as, but we'll keep going. They did share a story about the mascot for the Colorado Buffaloes, who is known as Rocky Mountain, decided to wear black. He decided to shoot off what's known as a t-shirt cannon. Now let's go back, because I believe I talked about this on the show, and if I didn't, I hope I did, because I would be a bad podcaster if I did not share this story when it happened. Yes, I did share the story, but I don't remember what episode. I feel bad. Someone used the hot dog cannon to shoot a hot dog in the crowd, and a woman was injured by the hot dog. I'm still trying to understand what speed was the hot dog cannon set on when it got to her. Granted, she might not have known it was coming. I got that too. But it's not just the hot dog itself. It's it's wrapped up. So it's not like you're getting hit with a hot dog and buns. I'm still trying to put that in my head, but nonetheless, this situation is a little different. The person wearing the costume blasted himself in the groin with the t-shirt cannon during the Buffaloes game against University of New Hampshire. I truly hope this video plays because it was so unexpected how it happened. Oh. I'm sorry. Okay, you know what? Wait. I had heard the story. I knew about the video, but I didn't realize the extent of how bad or how it all went down until I'm looking at it now and I'm like, bruh, that's tough. Chip, who is the mascot, was carted off the field. And they did, give him a lot of shouts and cheers and gave a lot of positive feels. It didn't keep him away from the sideline for long. He did return to see the Buffaloes win against New Hampshire. I'm going to be honest, I don't think it's the same guy, but we ain't going to talk about it. So glad that he's okay. And, hopefully it wasn't like a massive injury, but the good thing is, it's just tough to see that happen. But again, the writer of this story was Ron Dicker. All right, we're at the end. We chipped right at the 1 hour mark. And I'm going to say this because I don't need to, but it's me learning how to be transparent with my podcast. Because y'all know I'm always going to tell you what it is, regardless of how it may seem or how it may go down. So I've been doing podcasts. As many of you may or may not know, if you're coming into the 200 scene of my podcast, cool. If you haven't really been realizing it or knowing it, I've been doing this for nearly, if not 3 years. The first stint of me podcasting really was kind of a dry run, just test, but it's been a solid 2-year run of recording, uploading, etc., shows being saved on flash drives, things of that nature. I'm saying all that to say it as you always have to learn how to keep an edge with what you're doing. My edge or my way of doing things was just talk about stuff and not really do research and not really do information. I've done the research part, and that's been helping the show flow a lot better. What I'm working with now, and I'm being transparent because I feel like this is a way of networking and getting more podcasting exposure for myself as well as those who whose pages or information I'm using. I make it my best effort or goal to, if an article is being used for the show, to give the writer their proper credit for their article being in the podcast. And the reason why someone shared this with me and it made me really think about it and put it into perspective. When it comes to us reading articles or when it comes to us looking at magazines, what's the one thing nobody looks at? Or what's the first thing that you should be looking at? The author. I would have never thought of that, but it also made me realize looking at, and this is kind of like a change of media in a sense. If you look at ESPN magazine, Sports Illustrated, Times, CNN, well, I don't know if CNN got a magazine, but your major magazine companies, because some people still physically get magazines, highlights, a little kids cartoon thing, whatever. All of those have articles. Every article is written by someone. My friend who does media for VCU here with their VC Athletics. Shout out to Mark, by the way. When you write an article, you want to put that it was by you so you get your credit. And so when people are sharing your article, like if I talked about local sports and I read one of Mark's articles, I want to make sure Mark gets his cred for being known that, hey, you wrote this article. So that's going to be something you'll see implemented into the show consistently and more often. And I'm going to be making my effort of networking with other writers and getting them their exposure, as well as seeing what other topics they talk about that I can throw into the show based on what my content consists of. So that's just something that I'm sharing, and that's just something that I'm working on, and it's a constant work in progress. And I'm just glad I'm in the space and in the place that I'm at with what I'm doing for the show. So as always, share at the end. Continue to check out the show. New shows are uploaded on Spreaker.com. If you're looking to start off podcasting, I would recommend using them. You have other options: Libsyn, Blueberry, things of that sort. But I found Spreaker to kind of be just my speed. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But check out Spreaker.com. If I get a promotion code, I'll share it, but I don't have one right now. But if you really are trying to start off with podcasting, start there. My random tip that I'm going to throw out there before we close is do not get pressed on getting the RSS feed or getting to iTunes. Pocket shows, get a feel for whether you want to do it. See if it's something you really want to do. Because if you're not ready to dedicate time to podcasting, you'll pod fade in no time. I say that a lot of times on different shows, and I know people hear me say it, but I'm sharing it now because it's a real thing. It really is a matter of how willing are you to work on your craft or, value your aura. The microphone I'm using, which has had me probably sound louder or quieter than expected, is the Blue Yeti microphone. I said this on a show a couple episodes back. If you're wanting to go the route that I did, get the Yeti Blackout, or you can get the Yeti Pro, which has the option for USB as well as XLR if you want to connect it to a mixer. I've not really gotten on the mixer scene. Hopefully that changes. We'll see. But if you're not in need of a microphone to this capacity, then just get the Blue Yeti Nano. You'll get the same quality, even more worthwhile results. And that's mainly all I have. So, and also, passpodcast.com. If you do check email frequently, you can definitely get email notifications of when my shows are posted on passpodcast.com. If you need any help with guiding and getting through the site, I may be changing the site again because I realize some of the navigation is a little complex, but that's just me being picky. So I just want to share that. I'm going to go ahead and close out because this will turn into like a 4-hour outro. Until next time, y'all take it easy. The Paz signing out. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to get any information specifically based on the shows, you can go to Spreaker.com/BriTapePodcast or go to www.passpodcast.com. On both of those options, you do have the information related to what topics were talked about, the timestamps for the episode, as well as the specific links related to that specific story. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, the Paz signing out. でもそんなんじゃダメもうそんなんじゃほら心は進化するよもっともっとそんなんじゃダメもうそんなんじゃほら心は進化